pretty cute baby, by the way. That first one in particular is a cutie pie.
I mean, he's only going to be around for about 12 minutes.
Yeah, that one's not even around that long, I don't think. Like, he's literally in that one scene, and I think it's a different kid
the next
even
one.
when we go downstairs, like that morning.
It's wild. It's wild. And actually, I might have been more interested in having children if you could get through the diaper phase that fast, you know. For us consciously child-free, this could make it a little more appealing. I don't know.
The Articulate Coven is the original unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, The Vampire Chronicles, The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and The Immortal Universe from AMC and AMC+.
Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. The Articulate Coven's the unofficial fan podcast and community for all of Anne Rice's Immortal Universe. Of course, we started talking about vampires, especially our vampire boyfriend Lestat and all of his Coven of the Articulate, i.e. the name. But we also are big fans of the Lives of the Mayfair Witch series from Anne Rice, and that means that we are now discussing Mayfair Witches from AMC. It's time for season 2, Ashley.
Season two, which we have we have a bit of warm hope for, just based off of the really good previews we saw with San Diego Comic-Con, etc. I think that we have a little bit of going into the season, okay, maybe this is going to feel a little different than last season.
Ashley and I were so, especially based on how much we just were madly in love with season 1 of Interview with the Vampire. And what a fascinating adaptation of the original it was, even though it wasn't completely consistent with the book storyline. They moved timelines up a little bit. Obviously, Louise is an African-American now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So there are changes, and those changes can be additive to the story, we found out, not take away. So even though we were mad about the loss of characters like Michael and Aaron, especially, we were like, maybe this is going to be maybe it'll be like Interview again. It wasn't quite.
It didn't feel like that.
No, we were not super happy with season 1. But just as you said, Ashley, it's like the Comic-Con was pretty great. We watched that and we were like, hey, this might be something. And we watched
really
the first
energized.
trailer. The first trailer was a little crazy. But still, I thought, this might be interesting. This might be compelling, high-quality premium television, even if it's not a faithful adaptation. And that would be worth it in and of itself.
100%.
I'll tell you up front here, after watching episode 1, I think it might be. This was significantly better than the end of season 1. I think it at least holds up to, and maybe even exceeds, the pilot. The pilot episode, even though they changed a lot of things, the atmosphere of it felt very much like Mayfair Witches, right? You and I were both bought in. This feels like, in several different ways that we're going to call out in this episode, to me at least, it feels like Mayfair Witches a little bit more. It is not the book. And if that is a hard line for you, then friends, do yourself a service and maybe don't watch. Just listen to our discussions. Yeah.
I mean, we're still going to have things to talk shit about, so don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
It is this first episode coming. This first episode was I was so into it and interested. I was like,
what show is this?
How the fuck did the last season end? I was like, we're in the house again? What happened between then and now? And I felt a little confused. And then I felt confused. I continued to be confused as they, mentioned characters that have existed that we know of. So I was like, oh wait, what's happening now? What are we doing? I mean, this was a fun opener for the season, I think. So also get to see Rowan, a little bit of a stronger version of Rowan, where she's curious and trying to figure shit out instead of just whimpering and crying and fucking ghosts.
Absolutely. It's not just, so part of it is that she shows more agency in this episode than she did in season 1. But more than that, she shows qualities of Rowan from the books.
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh, wait. Hey, it's in there.
Someone
Ashley,
read a book.
we joked. we have joked in the off season that the book Lasher is significantly shorter than the book The Witching Hour, and maybe this one's just easier for everybody to digest.
Maybe it's easier to adapt. I don't know. But now I've got to reread it because I'm like, what the hell does happen in Lasher?
So if you're listening to this show, by the way, and you are not currently a patron, I will say you're probably going to, well, not probably, you are, you're going to receive these one day later than the patrons are all season long. We're going to be putting them out at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Sundays, just in line with the AMC showing, so that even people watching on cable, you won't be spoiled. But that's when our episodes are going to drop for you if you're a patron, and then they'll drop Monday night at the same time if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening to us on a podcast app. If you are interested in determining whether or not Lasher is our very next book to cover on this show after Mayfair Witches Season 2 ends, well, become a patron. We're going to have a poll going up soon on a couple of different choices for the book and what you want us to cover next. And obviously, we'll get to all of these books eventually, but you can determine the order and how quickly you get it. So there.
You might need us to unpack some shit for you beforehand, and that's fine. We're here for you.
I'll just say this, Ashley. I do this all the time. I would look around for my phone. I'm like, where's my phone? You're using your phone as a camera. I don't. Anyway, okay. I reached for my phone because just the other day I downloaded a handful of books that I'm expecting to start, soon, and I wanted to have choices as I finish the next one. Like, what do I go to? So right now I'm reading The Drawing of the Three. It's the second book in the Dark Tower series, which I got to tell you, like, I don't know how if I had ever started this one before, I would have read the whole series much sooner. I think the gunslinger is such a particular thing, and it like hints at it. And I always read through it, and then I don't start the next one right away, and I've forgotten the gunslinger by the time I get ready to move forward. And so I've read the gunslinger like I think 4 times.
I have
counting this last
as well. I've tried to read that series so many times, and I need to try again. My dream and hope. There's a disconnect for me. I just can't quite connect to things, which is really weird for me and for Stephen King in general. But I'm hoping that the Mike Flanagan series is going to be so good that I'm like, oh, now I'm ready. Now I'm in this world. Now I'm totally immersed and ready to fucking do the sit down and do the reading of it. Because I've tried to read that series so many times, and every time I've tried, I've definitely read the damn gunslinger over and over and over again. It's like a punishment almost.
And it's so different than most of King, especially that first one.
He wrote it when he was like 16. I mean, he wrote it. He was really young when he wrote it.
I didn't realize that. I
think he was like 17 or 18 when he wrote the gunslinger. Now I could be pulling that out of my ass, but I think he was quite young.
But the other thing that it does that I think does make it difficult to get into is it does not coddle you at all about the world that it drops you into.
No,
there's a lot of like language that is, specific to Roland's world. And it's just like, you're just going to have to ride along with Roland. And there's not really training wheels for you, at least until like halfway through when Jake shows up. Yeah. But really, it's not until you get to book 2 and you meet Eddie for the first time. And Eddie's like, oh, let me explain. And
you finally get a little bit of a
put
glimpse.
It together.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
Speaking of the Mike Flanagan series, that's a great example, because if you're interested in Mike Flanagan's work, or if you're interested in Stephen King's work, we do have a spinoff podcast. If you haven't seen it or heard it before, we do a show called Flan Again. We've done Midnight Mass from Netflix and Mike Flanagan. Ashley and her husband Brat are wrapping up right now Fall of the House of Usher from Netflix and Mike Flanagan. So, and just like we mentioned with the next book, we'll be doing a poll on our Patreon about what's the next Flanagan series. We'll probably do a couple of movies first and then another Flanagan series. But anyway, you can help us choose those about, and timing wise, all at articulatecoven.com/join. Okay. So I'm reading currently that second book in the Dark Tower series, but like on my phone are downloaded Called Out of Darkness, which is the Anne Rice sort of religious biography thing that she wrote towards the end of her life. Or I don't think she wrote it, actually. I think it's written about her religious journey. But one of our listeners, Erica Robert Paolo, and I have discussed in the past reading that book and doing an episode specifically about Anne's Catholicism and her journey. So that's something we'll probably do in the future. That's loaded up there. I've got Lasher loaded up there, and there was one other interesting one that I wanted to call out, and now I can't think of it. But anyway, I've got some choices. I'm excited to get started. I'm going to try to read 36 books we talked about this already. I'm going to try to do 36 in 2025.
I'm shooting for 52.
A start. You're going to kick my butt if you get halfway there.
If I get halfway through that goal, I'm going to pat myself on the back and call it very good for my ADHD.
Absolutely. Okay. So overall, there you go. There are thoughts on this. If you were waiting to watch or hear before you watched it all, go watch if you're interested and check it out.
It definitely has the right vibe. It definitely has the right feel of things this time.
I really do. And again, maybe it's about checking our own expectations, right? Maybe Interview set such a high bar that we genuinely expected something transformative. And when we just got okay TV, or in this case, I think what is even pretty good TV, we weren't like willing to accept that, because the fact of the matter is you're not going to have lightning strike twice or catch it in a bottle or whatever the saying is that's appropriate here.
Right. And I think honestly, this show has appealed to so many people who are not necessarily Anne Rice fans or book fans, but like supernatural shit, which is great. So that's introducing a whole new crowd to her work, and maybe I'll get them into the books and get them into the vamps, and and then we get more and more of this content that we want. So I'm not going to complain about, who it appeals to or what have you. I just know that I wanted it to be better, and it feels a little better.
Feels a little better. Okay, let's jump into it properly. You thought you weren't going to have Jack Houston to push around anymore. Ashley, I assumed they'd bring him back eventually, maybe even halfway through the season.
No.
He's the opening of the show. Jack Houston walking in front of the house, running his bloody hand, by the way, down the
I thought he was wearing a glove, and then I was like, oh, because at first I thought it might be Sip, because he kind of had that thing, So I thought at first it was Sip, and it even looked like he was wearing Sip's glove, like a glove.
Yes, like a tight leather, like a driving glove or something.
Like a driving glove. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was a really interesting, like, oh, shit. But right off the bat, we get Jack back. We couldn't tell if his costume fit better. I'm hoping it did.
We don't see him very well here exactly. No. He's kind of in bad lighting and stuff. But I feel like his hair was a little different in that scene. His hair is definitely different later, which we'll get to. But I like it. They feel like they maybe took a second pass on Lasher's
Maybe they Lestatted him up a little bit. As we discussed, he needed that last year. Our Lasher needed to get Lestatted up a bit. That is no fault of the actor. The actor is hot. He's good looking. This man is delicious, just as we should hope. It is not his fault.
He's so talented too. One of the TV shows that I hope to rewatch in 2025 is Boardwalk Empire. And his run on Boardwalk Empire is one of my favorite things in all of television history. Like, he's just amazing in it. And I'm excited to revisit it to remind me of what he's capable of.
Right.
And like, whatever the disconnect is so far, boy, maybe they'll figure it out with him long term, because they really do have a gem in him. We were excited about his casting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hopeful. Okay, so for those of you though that are just determined, even after this episode, I ain't watching this show. I just want to hear what's going on. Okay, we'll tell you what's going on. I'm going to try to be a little bit more thorough. Yeah, about breaking it down for you. So yes, Lasher's trying to approach the house. He's got a bloody hand. He enters the house properly, and Rowan wakes up in a heavy sweat and comes rushing down the stairs to confront him. She's trying to keep him away from the baby. And I was so confused by this, Ashley, because again, I'm with you. I'm like, where did we leave things? I'm like, he is the baby, right? Like, when the baby was born, what is going on here now? What happened? It's a dream. Bobby came out of the shower and everything is fine.
Yeah.
Nobody's
died.
Old enough to get that reference, I don't think, except me. I'm sorry. That's a Dallas.
Us, yeah.
Yeah, like season 7 reference. Anyway, yes, this is all a dream, and she's just terrified about what's happening to this baby. Pretty cute baby, by the way. That first one in particular is a cutie pie.
I mean, he's only going to be around for about 12 minutes.
Yeah, that one's not even around that long, I don't think. Like, he's literally in that one scene, and I think it's a different
kid the next
even
one.
when we go downstairs, like that morning.
It's wild. It's wild. And actually, I might have been more interested in having children if you could get through the diaper phase that fast, you know? For us consciously child-free, this could make it a little more appealing. I don't know.
We talk about, parents talk about a lot of times, like, long days, short years, or something like that. Like, this is literally that. Like, Rowan is worn out and can't sleep and is washing clothes constantly and having to replace clothes.
Try to feed this baby. This, like,
there's so much milk in that first scene.
On the counter. It's so funny. Yeah, it is.
Oh my goodness.
It's a whole thing. He's growing quick. So let's just say that he's growing fast.
So when we see that scene where we're talking about where there's so much milk out on the table and he's hollering about, more hungry, whatever, thirsty. There's a little panel that comes on the screen. He is 3 days old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, I mean, it's been a while since I've had a 3-year-old, but to me, he looks about 3, maybe 4 on the outside. He's not talking much, but he is talking some. Like, even in the crib when she wakes up and goes checks on him at night, he says Rowan. Like, as the cold open for the episode.
No, your baby shouldn't be speaking in full words yet. That's baby still fresh. 3 days old.
So genuinely, I had no idea they were going to do exactly. I mean, in the book, he's a grown man, I think, within a matter of hours, right?
Yeah,
because they have sex, I think, the same night even. I think it's the same night.
Meanwhile, she's like, don't ever even try to kiss me.
Well, okay. We're going to get there in a minute. I absolutely think this show is going there. I don't think Rowan's going to be as happy about it as she is in the book.
No, but I think it'll probably definitely go there.
I think they're going there. So Aunt Millie shows back up. Aunt Millie is one of our resident house ghosts.
Sweet and Aunt Millie.
She is arguing that Rowan's got to ditch this baby ASAP.
Look, it's okay. Sometimes you got to hold him down into the water until the blub blub stops.
She says it is not a sin to kill the devil.
Yeah. Look, works for me, ma'am.
I'll say this. It's interesting to me that the only, there's a lot of witches that have died in and around this house, right? Mm-hmm. The only one that's remained as an ongoing presence is Millie, and she is devoutly anti-Lasher, whereas almost everybody else is like, let's get some of that Lasher juice, y'all.
It's so strange. And that is something that's a little strange and something that is not in the book at all. Like, this whole, family
most
worship
of them don't even
Lasher.
They don't believe in him. They don't know.
Yeah. And a lot of the people who do know are like, this doesn't seem like maybe the best thing for everyone involved. Just a bad idea. Bad things happen. He's been around way too long to be normal, natural. Yeah.
So Rowan is okay. We mentioned earlier there are moments where she really acts like Rowan. This is one. Yeah. She is obsessively tracking Lasher's growth, like the scientist that she is. I love this. I love this so much.
I did too. These are little glimpses that gave me some hope and faith where I was like, oh, she's acting like herself. She's researching. She's, investigating. She's going through the library and reading diaries and things. So it's like, we are definitely seeing much more of a curious Ronan. I think the idea that they got rid of Michael so that she had more agency, as though she didn't we don't want to associate her with a man or have her story be wrapped up in a man. However, they took away all of the things about her character that made her along with it for some reason in the first season. So she was she was scared. She was whiny. She cried a lot, and there was a lot to that. That's how a lot of people would react in that situation, I think, but that's not how Rowan is. And so it was always so jarring to see this wide-eyed, Rowan, when we know there's more behind those eyes than what we're getting,
Yes, 100%. I didn't think about it during season 1, but okay, you want to cut Michael out of it and not make that aspect of Rowan so prominent. all right, make her like really active sapphically then. Like give that girl, Rowan needs to be horny, y'all. She needs to be super horny.
Yeah. I mean, also you got to explain why she's willing to fuck her ghost kid. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, like that's okay. So that's one of the things that I never thought about when I was reading the book as a child, but like when we've revisited it in recent years and thinking about it for this series, like yes, like she was groomed and grown and genetically predisposed to be X and Y and Z and all of these things to bring Lasher's plan to fruition.
Right.
And part of that is her promiscuity. Like part of that is the fact that she likes the book, y'all.
Yep.
Anyway,
she wanted to have handsome men on her boat and then kick them out to go home so she could sleep alone.
So we meet a boyfriend, but he seems like kind of a long-term boyfriend. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe we'll get there in the show. But this was her writing everything down and her figuring like, who are you and what is it like? She even like goes into his body with her little mental powers at this point. And he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, no, listen, I'm trying to see
sniffing around
how you're growing. So, and she explains it really well. And I don't know, I mean, she might've been doing something more than that, but she explains it that if I know how you work, then I can help you better.
I can help you.
Yeah. Which is true. I think honestly, genuinely, like, especially at that point, she's very, I mean, and we see later in the episode, she's very protective of the child, even if she's not 100% sure what the hell this all means.
Right. I mean, I do think there's a huge element of let me help you, help me kind of thing. Because like, she's got to figure this out because she needs to figure this out. But yeah, it is, she definitely is active in what's happening as opposed to a victim in what's going on around her.
I love it. I'm like, I really think that she cares for this baby. And Ashley's like, well, you don't throw the goose that laid the golden egg out the house, Joel. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Help me help you. Help me help you. Help me help you. Help me.
Speaking of helping you help me, like she straight up asks him here, or he asks her, he's like, where'd the fire go? And she's like, what fire? Oh, do you remember making fire? And he's like, I gave it to you. I gave it all to you. Give it back. It's weird watching him begin to remember who he is.
Yeah. And also being in the body of a child. Like that was really like hearing that like petulant, like, I want this and I want it now kind of like childlike demand, but he's demanding his power and his strength back. It's so crazy. It's really, all this was really kind of fun and well done for me. I thought that, watching him kind of grow and change so quickly was really interesting. And they did such a good job with like setting up the tension of the whole thing and the creepiness of the whole thing and the what the fuck of the whole thing,
The casting is really good too, honestly, for all the Lasher variants. Like they're all pretty like, and obviously they're all asked to do a very different thing, but the thing they're asked to do, they all nail. Like, especially, I think my favorite, well, I don't know. My favorite is probably like the 16, 17-year-old one that we see towards the end.
The one in the
but
suit.
The 11-year-old is great.
Yeah.
Like the one who's like
good quality creepy kids. Like,
yes, man. And they've all got interesting pieces of dialogue and little glimpses you see of what this is all like for Lasher too.
Yeah.
Very, very well done.
It's
honestly.
weird. He doesn't really know what's happening either. This is like trying to figure out what I'm doing in this body.
Well, it's never happened to him before, has it?
No, it's not. Yeah. It's new for him too. So everyone's learning. We're all learning together.
Man, we're skipping ahead here a little bit, but there's a moment later I want to just call it out here because the quote is so perfect for this. He says at one point, Dolly Jean and he are together at the house, and Dolly Jean's like dressing him, helping him dress once he's aged up to 11. And he's like 16, 17 in this one. But she's putting his tie on and showing him how to tie it. And he goes, I've always worn them, but I've never touched one. Yes. I'm old, but I'm new. I'm a riddle. And I was just like, boy, this is the closest you've gotten maybe in the whole show to like the one of the key aspects that I loved so much about this series. There's lots to love. Like you and I both love the Mayfair Files, the tales of the old witches. Great. Yeah. And we get some glimpses of that here too. But Lasher's incarnation is literally the center point, right? We get the witching hour, and at the very end he comes in. Lasher is like his beginnings, and then Taltos is what all happens because he became a mortal being. The fact that they got that, and it's a good actor doing a good job here, but like kudos to the writer. We've given Esta Spalding all sorts of shit.
Well, yeah, we have.
This little thing, she's nailed it, man. And she's the writer for this episode, by the way. But yeah, I love the way that they show Lasher's like inquisitiveness. At one point, Rowan asks him, why did you give up this powerful spiritual body for a mortal one? And he goes, to jump, to smell, to run, and you're like, yeah, boy, he just laid, that is literally the thesis of these books. A spirit wanted to be made flesh.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about how long he's lived in this like spirit form that he is, and how close that is to really living, but it's not. How close that is to really, really like experiencing all the things that we as humans experience, but he's not experiencing any of them really. He's just like a phantom version of it,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't. So, okay, he and Rowan are talking, and he demands that she give him back the power, and then he runs away while she's making a note in her journal, and he locks the bedroom door, and when he finally opens it, just as Rowan's about to bust it down, he's grown it's a new kid now.
It's a new kid. Like pajamas are
7
way too
or 8
small.
maybe. Yeah, way too small. She's like, let's get you some new clothes. Really good cold. That's where the cold open is, actually, right there. But again, just the way that you go through this and you see his evolution and you see her just honestly dealing with it and taking it, but fascinated by it. What can I learn from it? And what does this mean?
Even if what I'm learning is how to stop it, even if what I'm learning is how to make this not happen, like I feel like that's true too. She's open to whatever path this is going to lead her down, but she needs to figure out what the hell's happening, which is another reason why it feels like fucking Rowan.
Yes. So Rowan calls Dolly Jean to come over and help her because Dolly Jean said he's going to grow fast, and she knew several things already in episode 1 that have now come to pass. And so she's like, hey, come help me figure this out. Unlike Aunt Millie, Dolly Jean is excited about Lasher's embodiment.
Yes. This is what we've always wanted. You look so handsome in your suit.
She says something new, something magical, describing what he is. She's like, I don't know what he is. And Dolly says something new. He's something magical. She also says here, and this is an amazing line, my mother used to say when he came, our powers would multiply.
Yes.
We can trust him. He's been with this family for generations. Okay, so first of all, I love... if you're going to say that lots of members of the family know about Lasher, that's the only way to make it all make sense, is that, hey, this is a thing that benefits the whole family, and he's in service of the family, and that's the legend that gets told. And then really it does make sense too, because only the inner circle of the witches know anything about what he's actually like or how he interacts. They're the only ones that ever worry about him, or the ones that actually deal with him, right?
That are, yep.
But this line, we can trust him. He's been with this family for generations. It could not have been an accident having that line come out of a black woman's mouth. Do you think? That was exactly the sort of thing that you hear slave owners talk about the enslaved, right?
Oh, God.
Oh, James would never do anything. He's been with the family for generations. Yes. Hell, it's the same thing you hear rich people say about servants.
About their servants. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, literally, I think that is a line in Driving Miss Daisy, where Dan Aykroyd says it about Morgan Freeman or what. Oh, you've been with the family for decades, or whatever, like, fuck you and your ownership. Like in this moment, I was like, oh, Lasher better fuck him up. I'm just like, let him have it.
Yep. Yeah, they're all a little too excited about what it could mean for them, which is just, again, you're playing with fire. Something is offering you power and power and power, 3 times what you have now. And of course you want it. Of course you want it. Of course you're not going to blink twice when this baby starts to grow, into a man over the course of a week.
Yeah. Since like Miss Taylor Swift, I have the Christmas lights up till January here.
Love it.
I'll just point out, I posted on Threads the other day. Somebody had said my kid asked why we never had Elf on a Shelf growing up, and then they had gone on to make a thread about why they didn't. But I just reposted it and said, "You do not invite the Fae into your home." Right? This is very simple.
Right. These are old laws, friends. These are old laws.
You can leave some cornbread and milk out for him on the porch.
On the porch.
You don't bring him inside.
You don't. If you got a crate, there's a vampire in it. You don't invite the Fae into your house. These are important lessons that you're learning from the Articulate Coven, my friends.
It really is. It's true. It's true. Okay, so Dolly Jean I just thought she was there because of the lasher of it all, but we get a hint here, and she's quiet about it. She's angling for Cortland's return as well. So
yes.
we didn't really get into where we left it all, but last year, at the end of last season, so the big things that happened, Rowan had the baby. So Lasher was born into human form or mortal form. Cyprian was super upset about that, and they had a falling out. The Talamasca went rogue, and Cyprian was going to be part of it. He was going to have to try to steal back the baby. And Cortland, by Rowan, got frozen as a statue. He got Medusa'd in the tomb or wherever they were before the baby was born.
Yeah.
Turns out later in this episode, she's got him downstairs.
She's keeping him in the basement, which is a great place to keep your Harry Hamlin.
But it's interesting to me that several members of the family mention him. Like, it's not a secret that she's got him in the basement, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. No one's like concerned. No one's like, we haven't seen him in several days. Nope, they know where he is. He's in the basement under that sheet, just in case you need him. Saw him out after you thought about it.
Dolly Jean teases her, though. She's like, I bet Cortland would know.
Dolly Jean's a little shit stir is what she is.
She is. She absolutely is.
Dolly Jean's going to cause us some turmoil eventually. I can guarantee it.
I'm angry at the captions for this show, Ashley. I don't know if you had yours turned on, but they called it a trolley bell. Those are streetcars, my friend.
That's a streetcar. That's not a trolley.
San Francisco has trolleys. New Orleans has streetcars. It's very simple.
It is very simple. That's simple. That's just common knowledge, I feel.
So we meet one of our truly new characters here, as invented for the series, Moreira. She's clearly, though, a rewrite of Mona from the books, and is going to play a very similar role as sort of like a rival to Rowan. So Mona is the other witch in the Falling of the Generations that theoretically could have been the head of the family if Rowan hadn't have shown up in New Orleans eventually. She could have been chosen and been Lasher's heir for that generation. And theoretically then, could Mona also have birthed Lasher into the world if she had been chosen? And so my guess is that Moreira is going to play that role very much, and they're setting that up in this episode pretty clearly.
Yeah, it is. It's we kind of thought it was going to be the gal from last season, Tessa,
so Tessa was even like a little flighty and bubbly like Mona is in the books, and also she's younger than Moreira. It may just be that, I mean, obviously in the books, Mona has a sexual relationship with a lot of people, but especially Michael, who is honestly at this point like a 50-year-old man, I think, or something, like close to it.
14 maybe.
15 maybe. Yeah.
If we're lucky,
she's too damn
50.
young.
Way too young.
Yeah. So they've just avoided all of that entirely. But my question is just, why not name her Mona, though, then? I mean, I guess their argument is
this another red herring, Joel? Who knows?
That's fair. That's fair, because we thought Tessa was going to be that character, and then she's killed off in season 1. So Moreira is Tessa's sister, though. And she's the older sister, like home from college, I guess, or something, maybe.
It's kind of got that vibe, but she's coming home to figure out what happened to Tessa. She couldn't get home in time for the funeral. Their mother is a real piece of work.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess they show her drinking. a little bit. It's not like they don't ever come out and say it. Really feels alcoholic coated, right? Like she's coming out of there on a Quaalude and a glass of bourbon.
Yeah, and just doesn't seem to care much that her daughter's dead.
No, so just like Dolly Jean, she is excited for the birth of Lasher and totally fine that Tessa's sacrifice was apparently part of what made all of that possible and doesn't need to ask about the details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions, just so you know.
I do feel like the way they present her here, I think that's a front. I think she's angry with Moreira, and we're going to learn more about that contentious relationship eventually. But I think she's playing for Moreira that she doesn't care at all when she wouldn't be. I mean, again, I think she's day drinking here is the way it came off to me. And when you're day drinking, it's not that you're having a great time as a general rule. You know what I mean?
Not always. I mean,
sometimes the day drinking is for funsies, but generally when it starts in the morning time, that's because you are depressed.
If you have to hide the bottle.
Yeah. That's a depression issue, my friend.
Yeah.
So I will say this. I like Moreira. And again, I like she comes off a little strong-headed and like she doesn't give a shit that anybody doesn't like her.
Yeah.
She's doing her thing. So we learned that Moreira
to leave and to go away from, to like, I need some distance with these people. Like, I respect that. And I mean,
she probably spent the family money still, but she did like walk away from the prestige that comes with being a Mayfair in New Orleans, probably, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So we learned that Moreira can read minds. That's her power. She can read minds, which again, this is all quite different. Like Rowan's already done quite a bit of like telepathy and telekinesis.
Yeah, just throwing stuff, and that's
not really a thing in the books.
No, but I mean, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time.
I am too. And again,
I love some Jedi mind tricks.
Well, and it seems like they're going to be consistent with it, and they give her like she's not Charles Xavier or anything. She has a problem reading your mind if you're playing music at the same time.
Yeah.
Which also is going to give.
She listens to music to keep herself kind of centered and.
Yes. One of my favorite parts of the not very great Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck is when he sinks into the coffin bed that's like a water sound deprivation chamber thing, and he locks himself off so that he can rest instead of having to hear everyone's issues all around him. Yeah. I was like, that's a cool moment, man. Like, yeah, I feel like, anyway, I like my superpowers to have some downside. So I like what they're doing with Moreira here.
It is. It's like, it isn't always, that would be loud all the time. If you could hear people all the time, all their thoughts all the time. No, thank you.
So I think I hinted in a previous episode that we were going to see the Mayfair Files come into this a little bit, and we finally do. It's not exactly the Mayfair Files. What they've done here instead, Dolly Jean gave Rowan the idea. She's like, I bet Catherine's diaries would have information about Lasher and what he really wanted. You should read those. So that's what she's doing here. She begins to read Catherine's diaries, and we see several little hints throughout this episode. I hope they keep it up. I hope they get bigger.
Too.
My guess is they're going to, though, because we know we're going to see Julian. I don't believe now they're going to bring Julian into the modern day. I think those are going to be flashbacks.
Yeah.
They've almost got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw some flashbacks to Scotland in season 1.
Well, and I think has that been hinted at that we are going to Scotland in this season? Did I hear that?
I think in the panel at Comic-Con, they talked about doing some filming in Scotland. Yeah. Anyway,
who knows where the hell we're going?
Yeah,
we could be on book, we could be off book, we could be under the book.
I do like the glimpses though of the diaries, and that's an interesting way to like. Okay, you don't want to bring the Talamasca in like they're going to drop it off with Rowan. Okay, fine. She's reading it from the family themselves. Also,
fine by me. Your
Talamasca files could now just be, instead of letters from Talamasca members, they could have literally gotten into the library and photocopied books, right? Like or copied the diaries. So anyway, we get our first little glimpse of that. She's reading the diaries out loud, and then this is what I wanted to say. Catherine Mayfair is quoted. Rowan reads it out loud. She said, or in her head anyway. She says, "Julian wants Lasher to know him in every possible way." Well, that is very book accurate.
Yes, that is very book accurate. Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody else was like, well, I'll ask Lasher for something when I really, really, really need it. And Julian's like, come to me, my spirit friend.
I would love to be your witch. I would love to be your witch. I know I'm a boy, but I would love to be your witch.
And your lover.
And your lover. And your best
your
friend.
Your body double.
And your body double. And
your tailor.
Yeah, and your tailor. And please be his tailor. That might improve things.
Oh man,
I'm still just trying to like. I'm really trying to deal with the whole Buffalo Bill of it all. It's gonna be a really.
It's gonna be so weird when he shows up. What if he shows up and he's super hot and we both buy it 100%? We're gonna have to eat so much crow.
No, look, listen. I'm happy to. I would love it for that actor for me not to look at him and think about.
Right. What if next year we just think of Julian?
Yeah.
What if next year we just think of Julian? Wow.
That'd be
it could happen. It could happen. Okay, so Cyprian is back. He is still a terrible spy and sneak, though. He immediately crashes the gate into the fence and freaking alerts Rowan, who comes running. Who's here?
And then he's like, well, she's got all kinds of spells and things cast around that house. Who could have seen that coming?
She's got a gate, friend, with a spring on it, and it slams back. It closes automatically for when your kid doesn't do it on the way out to harm the neighbors. We'll get there in a minute. Okay, so Rowan is not interested in having him around, though. Basically throws a lightning bolt at him.
Yep, essentially. She's like, go and get. Which, like, let's be real. He has every reason to think that kid is his.
I mean, ostensibly it is. We understand you don't look like Sip, let's put it that way. But like still, this is a child. I mean, Sip was part of, again, if we go back to the books at all, and if they're going to maintain that at all, at some point we're going to find out that Cyprian has some of the cocktail necessary for this whole thing to have taken place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I do think that we're still going to find that out. Like, again, like they brought his sister into it last year, and I think his family lineage is still, they'll play it differently for whatever reason, but I think that's still going to come back around. Okay, so we discovered that Cyprian is playing Memento with himself, basicking. He buries a bunch of memories in a Bible.
I love
and then is going to send that Bible to himself.
I think that's brilliant. If you think your fucking mind's being erased by somebody, that's a brilliant way to fucking figure it out for sure, and to get the things back in your head that need to be in your head.
It was pretty clever. It's a pretty clever use of his power, no doubt about it. He's afraid that this rogue Talamasca leader that we met last year is going to come back and it has been wiping his mind already, I think, is what the implication there is.
Yeah.
And he's still trying to save Rowan. Like, this is very Michael coded, the way that she literally just chased him off.
Right.
Which happens in the books to Michael, by the way. Like, she runs away from Michael and tells the family lawyers, don't let Michael near me, sort of thing at one point. Like, no, he can't be here, et cetera, et cetera. And still Michael's on the outside like, oh, Aaron Leitner, how can we save my girlfriend? Or my wife at that point. Yeah. So Sip is still the same. He's like, I can save her from him. I just got to get there in time. I got to get them separated. Okay. So Moreira goes to see Tessa's grave. Let me just tell y'all, witch or not, don't go to a cemetery in Louisiana in the middle of the night. I was so worried for her.
Why are we doing that? That is not, no. Pretty sure they closed the damn gates, actually.
Right. Moira is trying to contact Tessa. She's trying to speak to her. That might be why she went at night, I suppose. But it's interesting to me. First of all, it's interesting to me that Moira thinks there's a chance that she could speak to Tessa.
Yeah.
Which sort of implies that she's spoken to dead people in the past.
Yeah.
And two, she can't, or seemingly can't at the moment anyway. Which, again, like, is the nature of spirithood going to be like really explored in this series, or in the Talamasca series, maybe, I wonder.
Right.
Interesting. Those are topics that come, like the nature of spirits comes up at several different points throughout Anne's books.
Yeah.
And generally she has some pretty interesting takes on it. So again, there's lots of great source material here if you want to pull from it.
If you want to read a book. Or a Wikipedia, even. You could get in a really good wiki and really figure some stuff out.
So we're 5 days past Lasher's birthday now, and Lasher looks like he's probably like 7, maybe 8, and he's pulling out all of his teeth. Ashley, he's standing over Rowan's body, sleeping, and he's pulling his teeth out
and laughing maniacally about it.
It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen, honestly, on TV anyway.
It was so, like, you start, because you don't realize what's happening at first.
No.
You know he's, like, in there, and she, like, blood splatters on her face, and you're like, oh no, something's really not good. And then he's just cackling madly and ripping those teeth out.
Like a loony person, man. It's insane.
I mean, I guess his adult teeth are coming in. He needs to make room for them, but my God, what a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been much creepier, I don't think, if he had just like peeled back his skin like a snake and all of a sudden he was bigger. It was weird, man.
God. I don't know. That could have been worse, Joel. I don't know.
She's like, nope, you made it worse.
Oh, snake people. No, thank you.
So we see Arjuna, who we met last season, another Talamasca member. Arjuna gets the Bible from Sip and a note to give it to him when she sees him next, which is very good timing because Cyprian gets back to his hotel room and who's there?
Oh,
the Talamasca.
The Talamasca with his purple smoke.
That was not I mean, I don't know, I guess they're trying to make it magical, but they spray him with a gas, knock him out, and then suddenly the next time he wakes up, purple paralytic, exactly.
Purple paralytic.
He wakes up and has a little meeting with the leader later. But first we go back to Rowan, who I thought this was interesting, Ashley, because it super mimics a scene from I guess it's in Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. We see where Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker is like standing over Kylo Ren once he's realized that he's gonna go bad, and he's like thinking about maybe killing him. Yeah, that's what Rowan's doing here. She's sitting there while Lasher's sleeping, and she's like, let me just go in there and look at his brain for a second. And then as soon as she goes in, she's like, no, okay, I'm not gonna kill the kid. I can't
kill the kid.
I'm not gonna blow up his head. But she thinks about it, though.
I'm glad. She should be thinking about it. I mean, I don't want to... Look, I'm not saying it's good to kill your kid. I'm just saying if your kid is also your lover monster, then the rules are a little different.
Perhaps. We get a little glimpse of Marguerite Mayfair's diary here.
Yes.
And then, again, she's calling out Julian. She's like, that Julian's up to no good.
Mm-hmm.
Lasher's probably 11 now, we see him, and he's got the Mayfair voodoo doll out talking to his witches, which is hilarious. So they argue, Rowan and Lasher argue, he throws her up against the wall. He's super strong suddenly, and she telepathically cracks the window and throws the glass at him, cuts his face. She apologizes, she heals him, but then she realizes, aha, I got a blood sample now.
Yeah.
My question is, did she egg him on and agitate him on purpose?
On purpose to get that? Or is it just lucky?
Or did she just stumble into, she's like, oh, well, since that happened. I'm not sure, honestly.
I'm not sure either. But if in the moment it felt more like since it happened, I'm smart enough to figure out. And thank goodness they let us know that she was smart enough earlier in this episode, because we saw her doing things that someone who's smart might do.
It's like, to the bat lab, Rowan.
Yeah, exactly.
So she goes and spins this up at the hospital. She's like, yes, Jojo told me that I can come. They're like,
I'm a visiting scientist. They're like, you're fine.
So she gets the sample and she's like, puts it together in her lab or whatever. But then we meet her old boyfriend. We go to meet Lark, which, by the way, okay, so they show us this medical tech guru who's trying to save the world from cancer, is the implication, I think.
It could be, or like eyes. It's to keep people from going blind.
That's what it is, yes.
Yeah.
But so in one scene, they're like, first of all, he's a genius and he's very wealthy and powerful, but also he's genuinely a good guy that wants to help people and hates it when money gets in the way of that.
Yeah. And not having fun dealing with the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, little shortcut here, but the implication is we're supposed to really like Clark and trust him. Although I wonder if, like Rowan, what we're seeing here is the reason why he's going to get co-opted into this whole scheme and end up helping Lasher do what he wants to do, and not, like Rowan thinks she's helping herself and the world at large. She's playing into Lasher's desires. And I think that Lark is going to end up getting caught up in the exact same way, because he's focused on what this might mean for the world at large. But they don't think about, well, what is the plan actually? Like, why do you exist? Right. And why is this all happening now?
Right.
So this is when we, before that though, Rowan is walking out after talking to the guy. She's okay. Yes, I'm going to send it away and get DNA sequencing for this blood. She hears a parent getting some bad news. So she slips into the room, talks to this little girl, and then goes into her brain and cures her cancer. But it's too much effort for her, and she ends up passing out.
I need a little nap.
It was interesting. And she, again, later she meets back with Lasher, and she says, I can heal other people just like I healed you. She healed his cut earlier on his face. She says, I can heal other people too. It's hard though when you're far away, and it's easy when you're near. Now she's really only basing that off of that she didn't have any effect of healing his cuts. I mean, healing a cancerous tumor in your brain is probably harder than healing some facial cuts too, though, right?
Yeah, I would think that the complication would be, what's the problem
nature of the injury?
Yeah, what's the nature of the injury? Like, it might be really hard to fix some things, and kind of okay to fix little scrapes on your face. I don't think you're not really comparing apples to apples right there. You're comparing like apples to cancer, and that's very different.
So JoJo is back. Okay, so
love JoJo.
Like 3 things. JoJo was not around. That actor was not around in any of the press coverage that we saw earlier on, and I wasn't sure whether they were going to bring them back. I was very happy to see her. Same thing with Jack Houston. Jack Houston was not involved in the press coverage that we saw, and so I sort of assumed he might not come in until halfway through the season or something. But no, right here in the first episode, glad to see JoJo back too. We really enjoyed her character in season 1.
One of the very brightest parts of season 1, to be honest.
And again, a total
favorite
invention for the show.
See, and that is, again, like, it doesn't have to be. We're not saying it has to be just like the book. We like a new character. We'll lean into that, but yeah, she was one of the best parts of season 1 for me.
Well, especially if you go back and think about it, because in many ways, she's playing some of the roles of like Pierce in the books, which is Cortland's son, and which makes sense. But again, like, how many doddering old lawyers do you need? And if you're going to make Cortland more interesting, and Julian is going to be in the past and not in any of the current, anyway, it's interesting that they made a better character, an interesting character choice. And JoJo is going to do some things that are different than Cortland or different than Julian or et cetera,
it might have the same, it might have the same end result, but it's going to, we're going to get there a different way, which is
interesting way, even for book readers. So this is where Dolly Jean and Lasher are getting ready together. And honestly, he looks pretty cute in that suit, even though it's way out of time. I do wonder, isn't that suit musty as hell? They pulled it out of the
mothballs. Oh my God. Lord, I can only imagine. In the dust. Get this boy some new clothes. That's just been my complaint about Lasher this whole time. Get this man, get this child, get this person, thing, spirit, whatever, get him some nice fitting clothes.
So Lasher tells Dolly Jean here's what I remember. I grew up near a church. I love music. And sometimes when I fall asleep, I see a veil and the face of a girl. Again, crazy to me. All of those things fit in the books. Like, I'm who knows what they will do, but I genuinely think we might be angling towards the major events of Taltos even, which is a book I never thought anybody would genuinely adapt. I think we're going to.
Yeah, no, especially now that we're like looking at the blood and talking about the genetics of it all. I think that's definitely the path we're on, because you don't even have to dig into that to, dig into the Lasher too far.
Yeah. All right. So now we finally get back to Sip. He's talking to our rogue Talamasca leader, and Sip's got a mission from the elders of the Talamasca. They want Lasher. He is a quote unquote a risk to the balance of the supernatural world.
Which this is also not the way the Talamasca is supposed to operate.
No.
We watch and we are always there, but we are not supposed to be diddly-dallying around. It always gets them in trouble with the Mayfairs.
So I wonder, okay, is this really from the elders of the Talamasca? I don't think Sip believes so.
His own rogue thing, yeah.
Yes, exactly. It is interesting, though, that they're already bringing them up and bringing them into this. We know at least one of them has been cast for the Talamasca series. They're listed in the cast as an elder. So I mean, I think we're going to go there. There's some really interesting stories to be had there, and none of that is really in the novels much. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this all comes together. I don't know if they're going to follow through with it, but it seems in this episode like they are hinting at a Cyprian Moreira storyline, which would make sense if you think about Sip as the replacement for Michael and Moreira is the replacement for Mona.
Yeah.
As we mentioned earlier, like Mona's like 14 maybe, and Michael is an old ass man. He's 50 something, I think.
Yeah.
By the time that takes place in the books. It's weird to me. Like they changed so much about both those characters, but maybe they're going to keep the fact that they have a relationship. It seems like maybe they're angling towards them.
They're definitely putting them on a path to
a trajectory. Yes, they're absolutely like they send. Well, they don't say it out loud, but the Talamasca guy says that Cyprian's they found someone who is an antagonist for the family, who is a Mayfair, and Cyprian's the one that's going to turn her to their cause. And then we see him following Moreira. Well, that's got to be who they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, she's the only one that's had a problem with any of this so far.
Yes. Everybody else is like, yay, Lasher.
Yeah, they might as well be wearing little cheerleading uniforms with big L's on them.
Which, based on the end of this episode, they should stop cheering for Lasher's arrival on Earth, I think, Ashley.
Yeah.
Okay. Moira shows up at the house trying to find Lasher, who is hiding from her. Dolly Jean's helping run interference. And Moira is not interested in talking to Rowan. She won't even shake her hand when she comes in.
No.
And Rowan's like, look, the Lasher upstairs is not the one that you're talking about. He didn't have anything to do with that. He doesn't know about it. He's a child. So finally Jojo walks Moira out and Dolly Jean says she is nobody's favorite cousin.
See, and I was like, that she would totally be my favorite cousin. Like I would get into shit with her. I could tell from a mile away.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm surprised that they went there so early, but Rowan and Lasher have a good scene where they're talking, and Rowan's trying to find out what his purpose is. She guesses. She's like, you're here to help me heal people, right? And he's like, no. I could tell you. And he goes in to kiss her. Ashley, I don't think those are two separate incidents. I think he was telling her what his purpose is.
Yeah. Yep.
And we see that play out over the next few scenes. But I mean, his purpose is baby making, y'all. Yeah. He's here to make babies. So he gets rejected, though. She's like, never, ever do that. And walks away. So horned up and rejected Lasher goes to Pleasure Island, Ashley.
Haven't we all? I was like, I've made some bad choices on that particular strip of Bourbon Street. And my phone fell out of my pocket, my back pocket, into a toilet at Treasure Isle one time. I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I took my dad off life support. Fishing this phone out of the toilet is my worst day. This is my 9/11.
Y'all, black is the only way we like our comedy around here. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm so sorry. We've been so traumatized. Trauma colors your laughter. And ours is blackity black.
Okay, so we've already seen, we saw it early in the episode already, they hinted at it, but Lasher loves to smell Rowan. And then it turns out he really loves to smell this young woman that he has discovered on Bourbon Street.
He's a hair sniffing creep.
You know, I literally have in my notes here, I said, let's see, generally it's not a great idea to lead with this much sniffing. But it really is working for our young Lasher here, it seems like. It is. She's into it.
She was into it, but I mean, haven't we all been there, I guess?
So Rowan's back
home. Something else is all I'm saying.
It is a whole different world. That's true. Rowan's back home reading diaries and worrying about where baby boy went. He comes home carrying this girl that he's found. He's killed this young woman.
She did.
Yeah. So we don't say how, but I don't feel like it is a spoiler at all to suggest he sexed this woman to death, didn't he, Ashley?
Yes, I would.
He says, "I didn't mean to hurt her. I didn't mean to hurt her."
Yep. And hemorrhaging seems to be the cause of death.
And not just hemorrhaging, but like the whole bottom of her dress is red. Where did she hemorrhage from? Yeah. Was it from the nose? Was it a brain hemorrhage, Ashley? No,
did not look like it. Did not appear to be.
Yeah. Okay, and then the most unbelievable thing that has happened in this entire series so far, Ashley, it happens. The house on First Street in New Orleans does not have a basement, I can assure you.
Right.
There are
under no circumstances.
There are no cellars in New Orleans. Y'all, New Orleans is literally below sea level. You cannot dig into the ground.
That's why all of the cemeteries are above the ground. It's very simple.
If you put them in the ground, they will float when it rains. Literally, they will pop out of the ground like it's the resurrection day.
Like what happened when Claudia was killing all of those people around the swamp.
Yes. You remember how they all came back?
They all floated back up, and they were like, "Uh-oh, something's terribly awry here."
Oh, yeah, there's no cellar, but that's where. And it's brilliant on her part, too. So Lasher is screaming, "Give her back to me." Which, that was a little scary moment for me, especially knowing what is likely to come next here. Yes. But Rowan distracts him and says, sort of pretends that she's going to save her, even though Rowan knows, I cannot heal this dead person.
She did.
Go to the basement and get me a pair of scissors. And he's like, I'm on it, and runs down the stairs. She follows him. He's like, what? And she's like, oh, it's on Anthony's table. And as soon as he can, she slams the door and locks him in the basement. Well, first of all, he's already thrown you across the room. I feel like you should know the basement's not going to hold him.
Yeah.
But, okay, fair enough. This gives her a moment to think about what to do.
Yeah.
But Ashley, what does she do with this poor girl other than cry about her for a minute?
But she takes her out into the swamp.
Friend, what did we just say about burying bodies in New Orleans?
Yeah, your magic might make her sink, but she's going to float back up. You didn't even weigh her down.
Oh, no concrete shoes or nothing.
She might get gatored a bit, but
good point.
She might get gatored a bit, but still.
I love the idea though, because the house on First Street, like, just so you know, like, it is the Garden District in New Orleans is not far from water, because nowhere is far from water.
Is far from water.
But you could not leave your house and carry a dead body through to the river if you live on First Street.
This is a nicer, like, these houses are quite nice. This is not like a gritty, dirty part of New Orleans, somebody gonna notice your fucking witchy ass carrying the dead body down.
Some Karen would have called the police about that one. Yeah. And listen, the New Orleans police may be slow to respond on many occasions, but if you say there's a white woman carrying another white woman's body down the street, they're going to show up and see what's going on.
Yeah, they're interested in that for sure. That's not something you see every day.
Oh, goodness. So Lasher, meanwhile, has used that super strength that we mentioned earlier. He tears the window off, and then he tears the bars apart, and he escapes out of the basement. Oh, which, by the way, really good. So the director for this episode, I didn't mention him earlier. Director was Colin Buxey. Did a good job, I think. But especially right here, there's a really cool moment, and I think it's on purpose as well. When he squeezes through that window, it very much looked like a birthing image to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
He's birthing himself out of the basement.
Well, we realize after we see he's growing as well at the same time. He's like coming into his full form.
Yes. And by the time he comes out of the window fully, it's Jack Houston again.
Jack.
With a new haircut. But I dig it.
I do too. And his shirt's all bloody.
Right? He looks great. But he's found a delightful smell on the handbag that was dropped by the girl that he just killed. And he opens that handbag to reveal her license or her student ID. It looks like her name is Lucy Mayfair. He sniffed the Mayfairs and straight up killed one of them.
Sniffed himself out of Mayfair.
As I said earlier, I do not think these Mayfair women are going to be nearly excited about his incarnation as they discover exactly what it's all about.
He's killing them one by one as he fucks his way through them, Joel? Is that what you mean?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear old Jackie Boy was headed for one right there.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it is. I think they laid it out very clearly. You can see where this is going. But I like that too, because that it's not, this isn't a series about a serial killer, right? Like, we're not going to just watch him destroy the Mayfair women. That is the impetus to what comes next. Yes. You know, is this crisis that they find themselves in because he is in a race to get himself babied.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I'm super excited for where this is going to go, actually.
I am too. It's a weird feeling. This excitement, this hope. I don't know.
Genuinely,
didn't expect to have much of it in 2025, but here we are, right at the top of it.
Right?
And I feel kind of okay about this.
Well, as before, we can escape into our fiction, right?
That's
Sometimes when the world goes awry, we can escape into our fiction. And I'm going to do it. This is going to be a good ride.
52 books of it this year. I intend.
There we go. And that's our episode. That's our episode wrapped up there as Lasher is on the loose. So our very first episode of the show, season 1, episode 1, was called The Witching Hour in honor of that first book. Season 2, episode 1 is named Lasher in honor of the second book. I'm putting my money on season 3, episode 1 going to be Taltos.
Yep.
Which I got to tell you, if we end up with a tight little 3-season arc where they tell the modern day story of the lives of the Mayfair Witch books, I will not be mad at that at all, honestly.
No. Especially if we come through this season as strong as the start has been.
Yeah, 100%. Very, 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 very excited for this, honestly. So if you've gotten this far and you were like, no, it wasn't for me, there's a little hope for you. Maybe go watch this first episode and see what you think.
If you want to wait until a couple episodes are out, that's okay too.
Yeah.
If you want absolutely. To listen to us, make sure that we're on the right track. I mean, we might get into this next episode and we might be like, holy shit. Well, we went right off the trolley tracks, didn't we, Joel?
Yeah. As that beloved philosopher once said, fool me twice, you ain't gonna fool me again. But right now they got me fooled. I'm buffaloed. Yeah, I'm on board. I'm excited for this. It is not the books, but it is a very interesting tale that draws a lot of inferences and inspiration and direct storylines from the books. So
this felt more like the books.
They stay on the trajectory.
Hardly any bit of season 1. So
100%. All right. That is our coverage of episode 1. As I said in the beginning, you're going to get these dropped every Sunday night for patrons at about 10 p.m. Eastern, and then they'll drop Monday night, same time for everybody on YouTube and the podcast apps. If you want them early, go to articulatecoven.com/join. $2 or more a month gets you access to everything we're doing early and ad-free. So yeah, check it out right there. Ashley, you got anything else to say before we wrap this one up?
No, just I'm happy to be talking about these witches again. Let's do this.
Me too.
Let's ride this. Let's ride this train to wherever it's going to take us.
Man, I thought you were going to say let's ride this broom on wherever it's going to take. Yeah, man. Absolutely. You got to ride the broom. Speaking of riding the broom, have you seen Wicked yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I finally saw it the other day. I know I'm like the last person. You and me are the last two in the world.
I've been waiting because I was like, I think I might need to wait until I can watch it at home, just because I don't think I want the whole theater of it, you know.
Okay, that's fair. I will say, as we are recording this, it's still not available, but as you're seeing this released, it is available, folks. December 31st, you can get it at home to stream. I'm sure it's like, you got to either buy it or maybe rent it for $25 or whatever. But like, if you don't go to the movies and you can share it with a friend or two, I will just say, as someone who had never actually seen the musical, the Broadway musical, I just heard it in auditions for a million years.
For a million years.
Yeah.
Yes. Every girl our age, except for me, was singing Defying Gravity.
Listen, if I had ever seen the musical, I think I would have been singing it too.
Joel. I would have been the same.
It is truly delightful. I do think they probably could have made an even better, like 3.5-hour movie with an intermission and just tighten it up a little bit and just done one part. I think that would have been a better film overall. Yeah. But I understand why you wanted to make it 2 parts, and I don't think it's going to suffer tremendously. And I think, meanwhile, we're going to get to enjoy it for, a whole calendar year, basically. Yeah. So if you haven't seen that and you enjoy musicals at all, and definitely if you like witches, go check out Wicked. It's real good.
The casting seems on point and incredible.
Listen, I like Ariana Grande, and I think she's hilarious. But I genuinely thought no one would ever live up to Kristen Chenoweth, because I am so madly in love with her just generally as a performer, even though I had never seen Wicked specifically and her in it. I just thought, I'm always going to hear
her.
I don't think she kills it. And Cynthia Arrivo, I think I'm pronouncing the name wrong. Cynthia as Elphaba is honestly even better. And just like we said with Interview with the Vampire, I think there is something specifically powerful about making that character a person of color that wasn't in the original stage play, right? Elphaba in the book, I think, is sort of racially coded in some ways because of her green skin, but that wasn't in the musical originally. Having her played by a character of African descent, or an actor of African descent, I should say, means something. And in particular, there's a couple of moments in the cinematography where they play with her skin tone, with the lighting and the way that you see her. She becomes a black woman instead of a green woman. Just a couple of moments. Anyway, really, really powerful stuff. You guys go see Wicked. It's awesome. We mentioned a floating broom, and so I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, no, how could we not? Also, it's like one of the hugest films of the year. Like, we can't not talk about it. It's witches.
It did really good. Absolutely.
It's actually one of my first two books of the year. I've already pulled it off my shelf because I haven't reread it since college, probably.
I asked somebody else, a friend of ours, if they had watched it yet, and they said, no, I'm waiting for next year. I don't want to watch 3 hours and then not see the whole story. I'm going to just do it all in one go. And I said, man, I'm excited about it because now I've digested that. I'm going to go watch Wizard of Oz again, probably soon. Then I'm going to read Wicked. My plan is to read the book, which is not exactly the musical, but still. And then I'm going to watch Wizard of Oz again whenever part 2 comes out. I'm sure I'm going to watch Wicked, Wizard of Oz, and then watch part 2 is my plan next year. So anyway, there's my endorsement for that one. Y'all go see it. Ashley, enjoy it now that you can get it at home.
I will. My thing was like, I've just listened to too many people sing those songs already in my life, and I can't do it in the movie theater with any
and all of those people were truly talented, Ashley. The people in the movie theater might not be.
Right, exactly. No, everyone has their inner Elphaba, and I'm here for it, but I don't want to be there for it.
I will say this, and we're hearing it a lot now because you see like the TikToks and Instagrams and everything about people enjoying the movie. But that moment in Defying Gravity where Cynthia sings, "It's me," and she hits the high note, I keep thinking how fucking much Lestat would love that.
Oh my God, yes.
It's
yes.
me.
Oh, I was just thinking today how I need to go back and rewatch both of those seasons just to treat myself to something delicious.
Oh, that reminds me, as you're getting this, my second season of what things you missed in season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, those videos, I've already done like 3 of them, but they're going to start dropping this week on YouTube. So if you are just getting into or getting back into season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, as Ashley discussed there, check those out too. They'll start dropping on YouTube soon.
We took a week off for Flanagan for the holidays, but we'll be back with the last 3 episodes. Those
last 3, like, it really starts to run downhill, and it's really There's something.
Nothing left but the end of it.
I don't know if you know this, dear listener, but the House of Usher falls.
It's a spoiler alert in the title.
Folks, all right, we'll be back soon with more. Go watch episode 2 of Mayfair Witches season 2 before you come see us again, and join us again next week to discuss it. If you've got feedback for our episode, go ahead and put it in these comments or on Spotify or wherever you're doing this, on our Facebook group, whatever. We're going to do a big follow-up episode at the end of this season's run. So we'll do all of that at one time. Until then, we've been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven.
Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. If you enjoyed the show, check out our groups on Facebook and Discord. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Or find us at articulatecoven.com and wherever you listen to podcasts.